Now for the quite well known and often preached on Ecclesiastes chapter 3. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. Now, before we go any further, let's preface this with a little bit of commentary. God, by his providence, governs the world and has determined particular things and operations to particular times. In those times, such things may be done with propriety and success. But if we neglect the appointed seasons, we sin against this providence and become the authors of our own distresses. And this concept was very much familiar to that of Paul the Apostle, as he even instructs the church, walk in wisdom toward them that are without, redeeming the time. He also wrote to the Ephesians, redeeming the time because the days are evil. He says, watch for your opportunity to talk to so-and-so a person, to tell them the gospel or give them other good advice. There is a time that God has set for all things to be taken advantage of or to neglect. Just as verse 2 reads, there is a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to get and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. So watch for those open doors, and as well as observe the closed doors, know whenever it is not time. Verse 9, what profit hath he that worketh in that wherein he laboureth? I have seen the travail which God hath given to the sons of men to be exercised in it. He hath made everything beautiful in his time. Also, he hath set the world in their heart, so that no man can find out the work that God maketh from the beginning to the end. Now, this has been, I believe, much distorted, this particular verse right here in chapter 3. Also, he hath set the world in their heart. Many people replace the word world there and like to translate it as eternity. Also, he hath set eternity in their hearts. The meaning is, God hath set before the minds of men, and in them, the whole world of creatures, the whole book of nature, in which they may see and read much of the wisdom, power, and goodness of God in his works. And to some he gives an inclination and desire hereunto. But yet the subject before them is so copious, so much. There is such a world of matter presented to them, and their capacity so small, and life so short, that they cannot all their days find out the works of God, either of creation or providence to perfection. The entire book of Ecclesiastes basically is focused on everything under the sun, everything on the earth. So this is speaking of the world and not the next life. Verse 12, I know that there is no good in them, meaning no satisfaction for man. I know that there is no good in them, but for a man to rejoice and to do good in his life, and also that every man should eat and drink and enjoy the good of all his labor. It is the gift of God. I know that whatsoever God doeth, it shall be forever. Nothing can be put to it, nor anything taken from it. And God doeth it that men should fear before him, meaning fear to rebel against him. That which hath been is now, and that which is to be hath already been. And God requireth that which is past. And moreover I saw under the sun the place of judgment, that wickedness was there, like in the courts, trials and stuff, and the place of righteousness, that iniquity was there. Meaning that even in the highest of echelons among men, where the most dignity is supposed to be found, there is still moral decay, which is the reason for the next verse. I said in mine heart, God shall judge the righteous and the wicked. These judges down here don't do a good enough job, but God will ultimately judge even them. And the wicked, for there is a time there for every purpose and for every work. I said in mine heart concerning the estate of the sons of men, that God might manifest them, and that they might see that they themselves are beasts. And once again, I agree with what Matthew Poole noted on this, that God might manifest them. Now, this verse is meaning that God suffers these disorders among men, that he might discover men to themselves, and show what strange creatures they are, and what vile hearts they have, that they are beasts. Now, I do know some people that take that verse and say, look, men are beasts. There's no other way around. Well, verse 19 actually explains more of the figure being involved. For that which befalleth the sons of men befalleth beasts. Even one thing befalleth them, as the one dieth, so dieth the other. Yea, they have all one breath, so that a man hath no preeminence above a beast for all his vanity. And it's been like that since the fall. I remember years ago I was having this debate with an agnostic, and he actually came up to me during a pause within it, and he said, I will admit something, that human beings appear to be so much more above all of the other food chain. Human beings really seem to, building skyscrapers, going to the moon, going to Mars, exploring, it's just amazing what men can do that all beasts cannot. So we still see a shadow of that former preeminence that we used to have in the Garden of Eden, even to this day. All go unto one place, all are of the dust, and all turn to dust again. Who knoweth the spirit of man that goeth upward, and the spirit of the beast that goeth downward to the earth? Wherefore I perceive that there is nothing better than that a man should rejoice in his own works, for that is his portion. For who shall bring him to see what shall be after him? So here in verse 22, the final verse of chapter 3, we see Solomon taking a brief pause from his lament and saying, you know what, just enjoy the works that you have. Don't worry about whether they'll last from generation to generation. But he quickly comes back into this bipolar kind of attitude throughout this entire book of Ecclesiastes. I thank you all for joining me. God of peace be with you.